Hello, everyone, and happy time zones. It's your bird, Avon the Raven, and welcome to a new series that I am creating called A Raven Ruminates, where I talk about my most recent streaming series, in this case, Elden Ring On Casual, the a couple topics, and especially what could I have done better, or simply to change the outcome of certain things. There will be no visual stimulation with this one because I do not have the editing software required to do a voiceover for anything that happened in the past. So I can't just take clips from my Millennia fight and add my current voice to them. Let's get started. So to start off, the three deadliest bosses of this run were Millennia at 21 attempts. Shocking, I know. Radigan and Elden Beast at 18 attempts. I'm attributing that to Radigan's moveset because I have trouble reading him. And Godfrey at 16 attempts, which I goofed horribly. I don't know why I had as much trouble. Well, I have a couple ideas as to why I had as much trouble as I did with him. Something I could have done differently from the get-go, before I even started the game, was choose a different starting class. The Prisoner, while an amazing starting class because Magic Glint Blade is a very useful spell, doesn't have the stats for a proper Intelligence Faith build, and I went Intelligence Faith. So, stat-wise, I maybe should have gone with Wretch or Astrologer. But hey, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Something I noticed about the game, or well, more specifically my playing of the game, was a focus shift over the course of the run. In the early streams of Elden Ring on Casual, it was mostly area exploration. Sure, there were boss fights, but I was mostly going from point A to point B, bouncing around like a deranged ping pong ball on legs, and doing quests. Late game, it turned into mostly bosses. Like half-hour chunks of my streams would be the boss fight. Now, well, with the exception of Radon. Radon took up a decent chunk of the stream, actually, of his stream. But you don't really think about the late game difficulty spike that people talk about until you're faced with evidence of it firsthand. There definitely is a late game difficulty spike, and it's a steep one. Going forward regarding PvP, I will not be actively seeking it out. This means I will be turning it off, or I will not be turning it on in Elden Ring. However, unless something happens that forces me to turn off online interaction in the prior titles, I will still be allowing it. The reason for this is because people have no manners these days, and I have a short temper when it comes to people not following what I perceive as proper etiquette. Let's not have a rage about that. Huh. Something I noticed is that different bosses have different ideal times to summon Spirit Ashes. Most of them you're fine just summoning a Spirit Ash right out the gate. However, there are two particular bosses where you want to force a phase transition before you summon. The first one would be Renala, because I have yet to see a Spirit Ash actually target Renala. These Spirit Ashes will target the students around her, but it really just winds up being a energy sink. They wind up at half health by the time Phase 2 hits, and then they're of no help in Phase 2. The second one is Millennia, and this is mostly because elongating Phase 1 just makes Phase 2 more difficult for her. And if she catches your spirit ashes in waterfowl during phase 1, you're almost guaranteed not to make it through phase 2, because it'll already be a humongous drain on your resources by that point. Something I noticed that was an error with my playing was inconsistent dodge times. There were times where I could dodge something 16 times in a row and then die to it the next 4. This could be a focus thing. Not everyone can stay laser focused throughout 17 or 18 battles. Obviously, I'm exaggerating in most cases with that one. It could be a skill thing. Obviously, a skill issue is almost always a possibility. And I could have also misread. In the case of Radigan, it was mostly misreading. However, there are some other bosses that I did notice that I misread as well. Something that I didn't invest in early on, but in hindsight probably should have, is split damage. Overall, it may be worse because it goes through defenses twice. However, in the case of Radigan specifically, it really helped because I had the stats for the fire weapon as opposed to the stats for a physical weapon. However, definitely pay attention to what your particular character's strengths and weaknesses are, as well as that of your enemy. It can save you a lot of trouble, and I probably wouldn't have reached 18 attempts on Radigan and Elden Beast if it weren't for the fact that I didn't switch my weapon's affinity. Something else I should have paid more attention to throughout my run would be my talismans. While for Fire Giant and Melania I did switch my talismans, I forgot to for a lot of the other bosses that gave me trouble. Godfrey in particular would have been a lot easier had I switched my talismans to support a pure caster build instead of the hybrid that you see before you. But that's a thing that everybody could really learn from, honestly. Pick your talismans to suit the situation. Don't just assume that all of them will always work for every situation at hand. And the final thing I'd like to address regarding Elden Ring on Casual would be my reckless victories. There were times where I did something that should have gotten me destroyed, but they didn't. The first one that I can think of would be my victory against the Dragonkin soldier in the Lake of Rot. I stopped going for the platforms and just stood right in the middle of the lake. By all rights, I should have lost that. The second one would be pulling out Loretta's great bow against Estelle. If Loretta's great bow had even slightly less range, or the meteor attack was even slightly faster, or I had pulled out the bow even a millisecond later, I would not have been able to iframe through the meteor that came right at my head, and Estelle would have claimed the victory there. And the most recent of these reckless victories would be me pulling out Adula's Moonblade point blank versus Godfrey. If that had cast if he'd picked any attack other than the one he was attempting to do, I probably would have been sent back to the brace. But alas, in all three of those cases, my recklessness paid off. So there are definitely times where playing it safe can help, and especially in the case of bosses like Melania, you want to play it safe. However, sometimes you just have to go for the strange. My next run is going to be a game called Code Vein, and I'm not going to allow myself to deal any damage, which means I'm going to have to support whatever companion it is I'm bringing with me for this situation, or for certain areas anyway, because I'm going to have I'm definitely going am going to have to switch my companion throughout the game, multiple times probably. And I can already tell that that one's going to be more difficult than I'm thinking it's going to. AI does not always want to cooperate. Regardless, that will be Monday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That said, happy time zones, everyone, and I hope you all have an excellent day.